Hello everybody, welcome. Today we're going to be making the very first recipe out of the Adventurer's Cookbook from the game Wilderfeast, the game I'm very excited about. A game where you hunt monsters who are under the effect of the frenzy and can no longer be saved, and use all the parts of them to make incredible food, which you share within your pack. A very cool concept for a game. This one does not have a monster involved. This one is just a tea, which I thought was appropriate for the sort of winter everybody's having. A great way to get over a sore throat. So one of the things that's very cool in the game is when they make their recipes, they have in-game sort of fantasy foods that have different in-game effects for healing, buffing, strengths and powers and that sort of a thing. But the book very mercifully, apart from this here, which is the page with all the in-game stuff, gives us an actual real life recipe to follow. And I'm very excited because I've done a few of these cookbooks based off of fantasy games or role-playing games or these different things, and sometimes it's very boring and straightforward, but Wilderdfeast actually has some really interesting ingredients. So today we're going to be making a tea with, I got mine from Say Tea here in Toronto, organic Moroccan mint tea. Now what's different about Moroccan mint tea right off the top is that it uses gunpowder green tea, which is sort of green tea which is dried in a different way. It's got a bit more of a smoky flavor, and the reason it's called gunpowder tea is it's sort of rolled up into little pellets. Then that's mixed with mint from Morocco to make Moroccan mint tea. There's also rose in this, so there's rose petals and rose hips. The recipe calls for rose buds. I could not get my hand on rose buds, but rose buds essentially are just rose petals with a little bit of the rose hip. So hopefully that will get us where we're trying to get to. Finally, the next exciting ingredient is acacia honey. It's a specific kind of honey. I'm sure there's 1,000,001 health benefits. What I really like about it is it has really smooth, understated sweetness. So I am going to take you through what the recipe calls for here. There's a couple changes that I'm going to make just because I have made this recipe before, giving it a try, and I think there are a couple things that work better for me. And I'm going to be changing some of the measurements just to make it a bit easier rather than having to measure everything out in grams. So our first thing to do here is to put 6 grams of Moroccan mint tea, and I know that's to be about 2 teaspoons of the tea into the pot here. Now for me, this is going to be my first change from the recipe as well. They tell you to start the steeping process and then add your rosebuds. Now it's possible that the rosebuds that they're using for this recipe are a little bit more potent and flavorful. I had dried rose petals and dried rose hips in my pantry already, so that's what I'm going to be using. I wasn't able to find rosebuds anywhere. This should get me pretty close, but I'm going to do, rather than 3 rosebuds, I'm going to do 2 rose hips, and I'm going to do 2 pinches of the petals, and I'm going to put them in before we even pour the water in, and that way they get the full steeping time with the rest of the tea. So next thing is to heat up the water. It calls for 450 grams of water. For those of you that don't know, a gram of water is a milliliter, and so what you really want is about 450 mils or a half liter of water. My teapot has a 1 liter minimum for boiling water, which is just twice what we need. So you can either measure it after or just kind of know roughly what about 2 cups of water looks like in your teapot. The recipe does also very wisely point out that you don't want your tea to actually be boiling when you pour it. For most really higher end teas, just any green tea in general, you want your water to be about 85 degrees when you put it in. Otherwise you can scald and kind of ruin the more delicate flavors of the tea. So once the tea's done boiling, give it a couple minutes to cool down. All right, so having let the water cool down a bit, I'm gonna put in the 450 grams, which for me is just about toward the top, like about a centimeter away from the top of this pot. So while we let that steep for about 5 minutes, I got together here my little garnishing mint boat with some rose petals and lemon zest that will go on top, hopefully help the aromas along a little bit. And yeah, we're just gonna wait about 5 minutes now for this to be ready to go. So the recipe also recommends we do a more traditional pour here. You get a little bit of height and elevation that will cool the tea down and also sort of enhance the flavors after you create like a nice little frothy bit on top of the cup here. Let's see if we can make that happen. Lovely. All right, and now it's time for the honey. Now this honey is not super sweet, and they advise 5 grams for each cup or for the whole pot, depending on how sweet you like it. And I do tend to like things a little bit sweeter. A little over a teaspoon is probably about the right amount, but I'm just going to do 1 teaspoon into here. You know, after you stir it in, you'll lose that frothy top you made, but that's okay. And don't forget your squeeze of a lemon wedge here, just to add that little bit of citrus. Get that mixed in at the same time. All right. And after that, we just add on our little mint garnish that I had from before. Pop that little boat right on top. And that's it. Cheers. It's a very nice cup of tea. What's really good about this, I want more, give me a moment. What's really great about this is that no part of it is too strong. The tea itself is a very clean, not artificial, minty flavor, not that's gonna like knock your socks off. It's got a little bit of that smoky, refined bitterness from the green tea, tiniest bit of floral undertones just to make the whole thing a little bit more exciting, and that pop of citrus. And the sweetness is so mild and understated. It just sort of makes the whole thing a little bit more palatable, flows right into the floral elements. It's a beautiful cup of tea, and just what you need when you're feeling a bit sick. I want more. So this is the Aurora honey tea from the Wilderfeast cookbook. Great recipe. Very excited right off the top. Next recipe I want to try is their breakfast pancakes with king flower butter. Essentially, you know, a standard pancake like we're used to, but it's got some sunflower seed butter, like peanut butter, on top. Really curious to see how that turns out. Let me know if you like this. Let me know if you want me to come up with my own recipe and what weird ingredients I should use or exciting specific ingredients I should use to make something awesome.